there. Welcome to the Collide podcast. I'm so glad you hopped on today. I don't know what you're up to, but regardless of what it is, whether it's something so exciting, so boring, so crazy, I have no idea, but you're making space to listen to this podcast, and I am so excited to hand you this conversation that I just had with Shelbi, who is a pastor, speaker, writer, and a disability advocate. And I will tell you this, she was so just honest about her story and her pain and her progressive disease. And if there isn't a more brave, inspirational woman with such a beautiful heart, I mean, truly, this woman will inspire you and encourage you and maybe even challenge you a little bit. And so I hope you take a listen. Shelbi, you're coming at me from, I'm assuming, Portland.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love Portland so much. And as you know, we're going to be bringing a conference down there in February 2025. And we're so excited.
We are too.
Oh, we've been doing this work in Washington for over a decade, but we've been dreaming up this vision of what if we took this and went on the road and shared it with some of our friends. And Portland was just like, that has to be our first stop. So I have to ask you on like just a completely practical level, you live in Portland. What are your top three? Like, if you're in Portland, people go to these three places and do these three things. Whether it's like a park or food or shopping or, I don't know, a cathedral. I have no idea.
That's it. There's so much to explore here.
I know.
Depending on time of year, the rose gardens are so lovely.
Yeah.
So I would definitely check out the rose gardens. We're known for our coffee, and so you really can't go wrong with coffee here. My favorites are barista, and I'd say barista and good coffee are probably my go-tos, but barista on 23rd. So 23rd is like a great spot to do some good shopping and grab a good cup of coffee. So yeah, coffee and the rose gardens are the two things that come to mind.
I love it. And you can do those hand in hand. I'm taking notes.
That's right.
The next time I come, I actually haven't been to the rose garden in a long time, so I want to do that. I've been reading about you. You're a pastor, a speaker, a writer, a disability advocate. There's so many things that God is using you to do. I just want to hopefully start by having you invite us into how you became a disability advocate. Like, invite us into your story of like how this came to be.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I appreciate that. Yeah. So, that journey for me started when I was 16 years old. So I grew up one of three kids, and we were a really active family. So me and all my siblings played all the sports all year round. Like we just did it all. We were a super, super active family. And starting in middle school, we started to notice that there were some things physically that were becoming harder for me. And it first just started, it looked like pain. Like I would go to practice and then my body would just be in so much pain. And so we started seeing doctors. I was in and out of physical therapy, and really the only thing, I was healthy, and so it really, the only thing that we could kind of understand at the time was it was some intense growth spurt, growing pains, just normal things as you're getting older. But there was a turning point my sophomore year of high school. And I remember it so distinctly. So, it was softball conditioning. It was in the winter, and we lined up for sprints, and coach blows the whistle. And I just start to notice, like, I'm dead last. Like, all of a sudden, I'm just starting to realize, like, yeah, I'm dead last when it comes to sprints. And And that isn't normal. And the
Mm.
more I started to pay attention to just little details, like to get to all of my classes at my school, you had to go up 3 flights of stairs. And I'd get to the top of those 3 flights and just look around and be like, I'm exhausted. Like, is everyone else like losing their breath over just climbing these stairs? Or I'd be in
Mm.
conversation with someone, we're standing up having a conversation, and then I would just like be on the ground. I would just like trip and fall over. And the falling became like so frequent that it was like, I don't think I can pass this off as just like, I'm clumsy. Like maybe there's
Mm.
something more going on. So I remember coming home from that practice in particular and telling my mom, like, I think that something's off and we need to go to the doctor. And so
Hmm.
we got in touch with my specialist and went to that doctor's appointment. And at that doctor's appointment, the doctor just observed me do all these really normal things. Like she'd say, okay, walk across the hall, do lunges, just really basic things,
Right.
stand on one foot. And she got to this one moment where she was like, okay, Shelby, I want you to sit on the ground and stand up without grabbing onto anything. So I did that once. She's like, okay, do it again. I did it a second time. She's like, okay, do it one more time. I did it as I'm like going to stand it the third time. She just stops and she looks at me and with a lot of compassion, but with this kind of like cautious confidence, she just looked at me and she said, Shelby, I'm pretty sure that you're showing signs of a neuromuscular disease called muscular dystrophy. And it's going to be a
Mm.
long journey to figure out if that's what's really going on, but this is serious.
Wow.
Um, and so that was kind of the first moment where kind of navigating these physical challenges, but then going to a doctor and them saying like, yeah, I think that there is something more going on here. And so basically for 3 months after that, I did all kinds of tests, biopsy, genetic tests. And we found out that, what she was maybe kind of cautiously confident became my reality as I was diagnosed when I was 16 years old with limb-girdle muscular dystrophy.
Mm.
Um, and so, yeah, it, in a lot of ways came out of nowhere. Limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, it's very rare. There's no treatment, there's no cure. And basically it is the progressive deterioration of all of the muscles in your body. And so, yeah, that's kind of like a brief overview,
Wow.
but, becoming a disability advocate started with my own, diagnosis and realizing like disability is going to be a part of my story and my journey.
Mm. I know
Mm-hmm.
there's a million things that can be asked of you regarding that, and we'll get into some of it. But going back to that initial moment where you heard those words, were
Yeah.
you in shock? Were you like, no, I'm going to pray otherwise? I'm going to pray for a different diagnosis? Was your mom trying to hold it together so you wouldn't be scared? I mean, what was that? Because I know you just told that, like, because it's a part of your story, but that had to have been a really
Mm-hmm.
significant thing to hear and feel and
Yeah.
know how to even react.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So if I could go back a little bit, when I was in sixth grade, I had a really major spine surgery. I had something that was also it's called tether cord syndrome, and it's a really intense spine surgery. And in that time, I say, so I'm little Shelby. Shelby is a sixth grader, but I've had a relationship with the Lord since as long as I can remember. And I remember going through that season of recovery. And I had this moment when I was upstairs in my bedroom and I was just sitting down in my desk chair. It was quiet. And I didn't have context for Holy Spirit. Like I didn't grow up in a church environment where I had an understanding of like how you can hear and sense impressions from the Lord. But I had this really strong sense of the Spirit say, there's more to come. There's more to come as it relates to a journey of suffering and physical and what that means physically. And so now flash forward, I'm 16 years old. When I initially heard the doctor say that, my mind went back to that moment. I was
Hmm.
like, oh, this must be what the Lord was maybe saying to me in this moment. And so in the moment, I think it was God's kindness to have maybe planted something all those years ago to kind of prepare my heart. So initially, I felt a sense of peace of like, Lord, you're with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really in that moment understand the implications of
Right.
what a diagnosis like that was. And so it's been, and I still am in a season where, because of the progressive nature of the disease, I'm having to grapple with the grief and just the loss uh, of what having a disability like this is. So in the moment, it was like peace. For my mom, it was not. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, like I mentioned, muscular dystrophy is really rare, but it wasn't foreign to us. So I actually grew up with a cousin who had a different kind of muscular dystrophy, but he had muscular dystrophy. And for part of my mom's life, he actually lived with her. And so she saw up close and personal what living with a disease like this could mean, could look like. And so my mom was upset. My mom, yeah, she was upset that a doctor would say something like that without having the proof to really back it up. And so it was
Mm-hmm.
this interesting, like, both end of like a sense of peace and a sense of like fear, anger, and yeah, just the fear of the unknown and what that was going to look like for me.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
people listening who have no idea what that actually looks like, what has been the
Yeah.
impact on your life, your daily
Yeah.
life? And you just mentioned grieving losses. Invite us into the reality of what this has meant for you. Because 16 was a few
Yeah.
years back.
You're
Just a
right.
couple, not as many as me, but a few.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. So, uh, to help people understand the nature of the disease. And so basically, if I could summarize it, it'd be like, if you go to the gym, the goal is to like break muscle to build muscle so that you grow stronger, right? When I break muscle, my body lacks the protein to rebuild. And so that ultimately is what causes the slow deterioration of the use of my arms and legs. It's not having the muscle protein to rebuild. Um, and so getting that news at 16, like I said, I was an athlete, but now all of a sudden, when you come into the awareness that this is happening in your body, you're now kind of walking this tightrope of like, how do I not overexert energy to the point where I'm breaking muscle and therefore losing it? But also, if you just sit and do nothing, your muscle
Right.
atrophies. And so, I had to quit playing varsity. I was a varsity softball player. So in the short term, it looked like quitting sports, but finding new ways to still remain active. But yeah, from the time I was 16 to now, I grew up running and I'm unable to run. And it's just looked like, yes, a slow deterioration of I walk. I'm still able to walk a bit, but I use a wheelchair now, and it looks like needing a lot of help and support. And so I'm married, and my husband is both like best friend, partner in life, and caretaker. And there's really like basic things in my life that I require help and support. And so I'm not able to go from like a sitting to standing position on my own. I need help on a lot of mornings getting dressed and undressed. And yeah, my ability to navigate just really daily normal activities is always shifting and changing because um, the older I get, the weaker I get, basically.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. If there's a fear there of how's this going to progress? Where's this going to go?
Mm.
Do you live with
Oh,
that?
yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think growing up in the church, when I first found out that I had muscular dystrophy, I grew up in the church and I've watched incredible people get on stages and talk about hard things, but how, you trust in the Lord. And so I think when as a 16-year-old, when I got that news, I was just like, well, I know what to do. Like, you just trust the Lord and you just like have faith. Um, and then I had to go on a real journey, what's been a really hard journey of like, wait, what does that actually mean? Because I think that I interpreted it as like, you just sidestep the grief. Like
Mm,
faith, joy, and sadness can't coexist. I thought I needed to choose one of like, in order to
mm,
exercise faith, I need to just like be
mm,
okay. I need to just like be joyful and trust in the Lord, you know? And so it's been a real journey for me to actually show up to, um, yeah, the real sadness and you know, there's major implications for my life. You know, me and my husband have a deep desire to have children. Um, and all of our friends right now, we're getting to be in this really sweet season of watching them become parents and things like that. But we wrestle with this reality of like, I have a hard enough time doing the daily things of my life. I'm not able to even like hold a child without help. You know, like there's real
mm,
grief and loss as it relates to that. And so, yeah, I think I spent a lot of years just trying to sidestep and like not
mm,
confront the gravity of that pain and loss.
mhm,
And that led to a really hard space of just like, yeah, it led to a really hard season in my mental health that um, was really, really painful. So yeah, there is fear, but I think I've been on a journey of learning how to like, how do I show up and bring the real truth of what I'm feeling and experiencing to Jesus, you know?
mm.
Yeah.
I can't imagine all of the things that you've had to battle and navigate and all the grief that you have felt and do feel on a daily basis. I love though that you're actually being real about, hey, I was tempted to dismiss my pain. I was
Oh yeah.
tempted to dismiss the loss and just move straight to the like Jesus
Hmm.
answers. I think we
Yeah.
in Christian culture, often in the church, and I run into all these women who I remember speaking at a retreat once, and this woman just kept crying every time I ran into her at meals and breaks and stuff. She's like, why am I still crying? I thought I was good with God. If I'm good with God, wouldn't I be over this thing that happened to me like 10 years
Right.
ago? And finally, this just kept happening. And I was like, lady, like, what happened to you 10 years ago? And she told me this story, and she was given permission by her spiritual mentors to just move on and get over something that was so incredibly difficult. But because she wasn't given permission to grieve,
Yeah.
it didn't go away. I think we are
Right.
invited to move on, and I always like to say, but when we just move on, we don't. It moves with, right?
Yeah.
It
Exactly.
keeps moving
Yeah.
with us. And so
Hmm.
you inviting us to understand that grief and joy and faith can all coexist is
Yeah.
so good, Shelby. That's so
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah, and that work is essential. You know, I wasn't just tempted to dismiss the pain and sad. I did for a lot of years. And like you're saying, it moves with you. It
Hmm.
caught up to me and started to leak. And so, you
Hmm.
know, transition was kind of the thing that triggered this like, oh wow, I've not really been being totally honest about the loss that I'm experiencing, about the grief that I'm experiencing. And I had to, you know, I went through a real intense dark night of the soul where I had to really show up and get really honest and be like, you know what? There's so much about life and navigating disability that is terrifying. And I
Hmm.
think that I had to really come to terms with like deep down, if I really started to pay attention to how I prayed and how I thought internally about navigating with life with disability, my prayers were like, Lord, I want to die young. Like, uh, like I want you to have my whole life. But there was a real part of me that just did not want to get to a place where I had to experience the impact of my disability. You know,
Hmm.
I think I had to get honest with like, God, if I have to live with a disability, I don't know if I want to live. Like
Hmm.
getting that honest in prayer, bringing that level of honesty before the Lord, only then can He begin to like tend to that deep wound of your heart. But I think until we're able to feel it, we're not able to heal from it. We're not able to live from a place of wholeness. And so my life came to a point where it was like, whoa, I'm dealing with some real hard stuff in my mental health. And my life, it was like a matter of life and death for me, of like, if I don't confront the real fear and the real anxiety that I'm experiencing about my body continuing to deteriorate, I don't know if I'll be able to keep going.
Yeah.
But it's been in that place of honesty, it's been in that place of lament that I've experienced the Lord really meet me in powerful ways. Yeah.
One of our favorite things around here at Collide is hosting conferences just for you. These one-night events gather together women of all ages, stages, and faith backgrounds for an incredible night of inspiration and encouragement. Attending a Collide conference is a unique experience that women walk away from feeling refreshed, energized, hopeful, and changed. So check out the link in the show notes for more information on our upcoming events and grab your ticket today to join us for an impactful night.
But it's been in that place of honesty, it's been in that place of lament that I've experienced the Lord really meet me in powerful ways. Yeah.
On a really practical note, when you talk about being that honest, you talk about the dark night of the soul, you talk about coming before God and saying, this is how I really feel about this. Did you have somebody help you do that? Did you have someone come alongside you and sort of invite you and give you a permission slip to do that? Or like for someone listening who might be in a space where they're like, man, I've been running from what is true. I'm not being real with myself, God, or anybody else. And now might be the time that I do that. But like, how did you get to the place where you gave yourself permission to do it?
I don't think it always has to get to this point. And I had good mentors who had given me that permission. Definitely. But what the catalyst for me, it became a matter of life and death as I was dealing with, suicidal ideation. I was, I was dealing with self-harm. I was in a space where I was desperate. And so that level of desperation and needing help, like I felt so powerless and so helpless that my husband and I got to a point where I was like, okay, I need some real help. And so it looked like me actually needing to go away and get that help for an extended period of time, going to therapy once a week and having good people in my life who loved me. It wasn't enough to help me. Like I needed more tools to really get to the heart of stuff. And so, yeah, for me, that looked like I went to a place in Tennessee. It was a trauma rehab facility. I spent 40 days receiving holistic care. And I think being in that environment where I had a lot of help and people saying like, until you allow yourself to see and accept the reality of what you're feeling and thinking about this, you won't be able to move forward. Because when you're in that place of pain and grief, all you want is to not be there. And I wanted so bad to just like figure out the thing that I needed to believe or I needed to do to not be in this place anymore. And I think it was, the help of professionals and being in an environment that was giving me space to be able to do that work to say, actually showing up to this, it's really not an option if I want to live. It became that desperate for me. Yeah.
Would you say that when you left that 40 days, you came out of that dark night of the soul space? Have you come into a place of light since then? Like invite us into what has happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think I so desperately wanted like this light switch moment of like, oh, it was so bad and now it's all okay, right? And it's been a journey. So that season of my life is about 5 years ago. And I can definitely point to things that were instrumental in healing and moving from that place of deep darkness into light, to use that language. So it's definitely been a journey, but I think the biggest piece of that journey for me is, when I started to experience I was diagnosed with anxiety induced depression. when I was experiencing the symptoms and the reality of all those things, I did the thing I knew I wasn't supposed to do. I isolated. Like I shut
Mm.
everyone out. And I think a lot of that was because I had wonderful people in my life that wanted to understand and help, but I didn't even know how to articulate what I was experiencing. It felt so foreign and I felt so out of control. I didn't know how to show up in community, so I just shut everyone out. And the biggest component to stepping into a space of wholeness has been community, of stepping back in and actually showing up to a space vulnerably to say, I still don't have all the answers. I'm still in process, but can I just be there? And allowing people to love me in that space has been instrumental in moving from that place of deep darkness into a place of like perspective and peace.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've thought about this, Shelby, but as I'm listening to you share your story, I'm just thinking about what it would have required for you to agree to say yes to entering an inpatient trauma recovery program,
Mm,
to allow other people to enter into this thing that you isolated. And it's interesting too because maybe I think sometimes we isolate because we're almost protecting other people from our darkness.
mm,
We're almost
mm,
protecting them, like we don't want to burden them with how heavy and
yeah.
hard this feels. If you have a big
Mm,
heart, sometimes that's what you do. You don't want to burden
yeah.
other people. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you've imagined, what if I wouldn't have done that? And I think about people, and I know you advocate for people and you're ministering to people and speaking and writing and all these things to help people. But I'm sure there's people listening who they might be in isolation. They might be in a place where the temptation is to stay and keep what's really going on kind of quiet and secret and in the dark.
Hmm.
What what did it take for you? Because to me, it took incredible bravery. But what would you say it took for you to say, I'm going to allow other people into what's really going on here?
Mm, that's a great question. Yeah, when I look back on that decision of saying, yeah, I gotta go and get that extra help again, it was like it felt life or death. It felt like, you know, I'm looking at my husband and I really was. I was in like a mental health crisis space of like I I was having a hard time functioning day to day. And I really had gotten to a spot where I had believed, like, I think that it, I had understood so much of my identity. Looking back, this is hindsight, but so much of my identity, I think I had placed in what I did. Like, I am what I do. And so as my body is deteriorating and I'm experiencing like, oh, I can't contribute in the way that I thought I was supposed to in order to be of value. So then mentally I'm like, well, then wouldn't it be better for me and everyone around me if I just wasn't here? That's the spot I was in. And so I think that that moment of reaching out was, of really hearing my husband and saying like, I love you and I want you here. And, and I think it really was like it just was a moment for me of like, okay, I can't figure this out on myself. I can't do this alone. I'm afraid of of what I would do. And I think it was just coming to terms with that reality that was like, okay, if I really do believe that like there is hope on the other side of this, um, then I have to be willing to get help. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I think that I was in that spot where I thought I was the only one. And I think it was just taking a risk to say, oh, maybe I'm not. And yeah, maybe I'm not. And, um, yeah, it was a very like humbling and even humiliating season because I was like, I was a youth pastor at the time. I'm the person who's supposed to like have the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am experiencing this huge disconnect between like what I know to be true and then what my experience is.
Right.
And I think it was just recognizing that like I can't keep going on like this. I've got to actually make space. I can't give away what I don't have.
Mm.
And so I really needed to step into that space of like getting honest and healing and recovering. Yeah.
Just bravery and humility and surrender and being gut-wrenchingly honest, which is, I mean, I'm so proud of you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
as you think about, I mean, that was I think did you say 5 years ago?
yeah,
5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now it seems like God's using you to sort of advocate for other people who are in hard spaces. What has that been looking like for you?
Yeah, I think that what it looks like first and foremost is continuing the work myself of like, how do I show up to opportunities to get to speak, or, I'm on my church's teaching team. What does it look like to show up to all of those opportunities and continuing the work of bringing myself honestly before the Lord and speaking and teaching from that place? And so I don't think it's something that we ever grow out of. I'm reminded of Jesus's words where he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom." I think that poor in spirit requires a constant recognition of how much you need. And so I think some of that advocacy works it looks like just showing up and being honest and vulnerable about like where I'm in process and how much I still need the Lord, and then allowing him to like show up and move in power. You know what I mean? And so, I think it's just the consistent yes to like, okay, Lord, how do I show up completely like, honest before you and others? And how might that actually open us up to receive the more of you, to receive, what is true and actually make space for more people at that table. Yeah.
Well, I think it's so incredibly cool that you continue to allow Jesus to show up in your story, and the whole call to be aware that we are poor in spirit and we need God, and then allow him to use that in other people's lives is a beautiful invitation that you're laying out for us.
Yeah. Good.
I was thinking the other day about the man whose friends, we don't even know if they're friends. We know that 4 men carried the man on the mat to the house. The house was full. You probably know the story. They unroof the roof and they lower him down in front of Jesus, who's teaching in a packed house. And I was thinking about that the other day. And I was thinking, wow, that's so cool that Jesus healed this guy. Like, he could have been like, I'm busy, I'm in the middle of a sermon, whatever. Like, who knows? The rope could have dropped. They could have dropped this guy. I don't know. There's a lot of things that could have gone wackadoodle. But what I've never thought about in all the times that I've read that until the other day was, wow, those men experienced a healing. The men who lowered him down, they experienced front row seats to seeing what God can do. Their faith grew. They realized Jesus has power for their lives as well by being a part of seeing. So I just thought of that when you said that, because it's like they got to help carry someone who was poor in spirit. And that actually changed their lives forever, right? So I think what you're doing in a way with your life and your story by sharing it, even today, coming on here and sharing it, is you're kind of filleting yourself open and being real about your experience and the way that Jesus is meeting you in the pain. And other people get to see his healing and his power and his hope and his light. Because you're not coming out here saying, I'm awesome and life is perfect. But you're
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
Jesus is meeting me in the pain and
Yeah.
in a personal way, which is really like
Yeah.
a really faith building thing for other people
Mm.
to see.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we need more of that, right? I think sometimes in leadership or in whatever role it is that you play, we feel like in order to lead people to Jesus, we have to be him. And so therefore we need to like have all the answers or be put together or da 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 da. But I continually come back to, Paul in 2 Corinthians 12, where he says, um, where he's like having conversation with the Lord about this thorn in his flesh, and he receives the Lord's voice, which is, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. And I think that when we offer up, when we lean into the places of pain in our life, our pain becomes a dwelling place for the presence and power of God to be made known. Right. And so it's like, oh man, I actually don't have to I don't have to like be perfect or whatever. Actually, if I want people to see Jesus, letting people into the places of like pain and need in my life, it allows us both to see Jesus. And I think that that's what you're hitting at in that story in the scriptures. It's like, as we both, as we come together and we show up to one another and we come to Jesus in that, we get to experience him, which is what we really need.
Right. It was in
Yeah.
his pain, his need,
Yes.
his weakness that everyone present got to
Exactly.
see
Yeah.
Jesus's power. And so I love
Yeah.
that you're opening yourself up to that. And I love that
Mm.
you've hopped on here and blessed us today. I know I could ask you a million questions and we could talk all day long. One thing I do want to ask you, because you just brought up Corinthians and God's power is made perfect in weakness, which is like a verse that I go back to almost
Yeah.
every stinking day.
Mm.
But you bring up the part of the verse where he says, "My grace is sufficient." And I'm wondering, on days where it doesn't feel sufficient, moments in days for you where it doesn't feel sufficient, can you invite us into what you do to grab hold of Christ's sufficiency? Because I think there's many of us listening who could learn from the wisdom that you have gained over the years from your journey.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. How do I grab on to the sufficiency? Because you're right. There's a lot of days where, yeah, it's just, it's just hard and it just feels like loss.
Yeah.
I think for me, it requires creating really intentional space, to be honest. And so like, just quick story example is part of the reality of my life because the disease is progressive. Moments like this happen where, my husband was out of town. This was not too long ago and I needed to go to the grocery. So I got in my car. I went up, just to the market up the road and got what I needed. And as I'm getting into my car, I fall and, I can't get back up. Like I don't have the physical strength to just get back up. And so before he had left, we had kind of game planned like an emergency plan in case something like this happened. And so I texted my friend Maddie. She lives 20 minutes away. So I'm just sitting there for 20 minutes
Shelby.
until she comes and I'm helpless. And I'm like, it's so vulnerable. Like people are walking by and I don't know what to do. Like it just all the chaos and the reality of feeling helpless is like in the present moment. And I think holding on to and reaching for the sufficiency of his grace in that moment. And then in the moments after is, creating space to feel all those things, but to feel them with him. And so, yeah, it looks like sitting in my favorite place in my house and just saying like it giving myself permission of like, it's okay to feel. And so I allow myself to cry, or I write out the things that I'm scared about or that I'm afraid about. But then I make space to just be like, okay, so what do you say? Where are you in this? And I think imaginative prayer has been really helpful. So I'll just like engage my imagination and say, okay, Lord, like, where were you in this? And I think, yeah, creating that space is really, really important in order to receive his grace. Because I think if we just move from thing to thing to thing and we don't actually create the space, then we can't receive the gift that's on offer. But I think that it's in feeling the pain and giving voice to the grief and the fear with him is a bridge to receiving the sufficiency of his grace.
Shelbi, you have so much wisdom and that's such a beautiful heart. And I love that you want to help other people while you're grasping hold of his sufficiency for your own life while sharing it with other people. So thank you for being on here today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Willow. It's a joy.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know there's going to be people who want to follow along with your story, want to be praying for you, want to reach out and connect with you. How can they do that?
Yeah, probably the easiest way. I'm on Instagram. I'm not on a lot of social media platforms, but I am on Instagram. And so you can find me at Shelbi Shutt. All one word.
Love it. Shelbi, thank you for hanging out. Friend, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Shelbi. And if you love hearing stories of people who are experiencing God running into the pain and the darkness and the hardship and the mess, keep coming back to this podcast because you'll see that it seems as though the people that we're interviewing who are colliding with Jesus are experiencing him bring light into the darkest of places, bring hope into the most hopeless of places, bring life into the places where they're giving up. And that seemed so true of Shelbi's story. I hope it encourages you in your story where you're at today. If you feel like you need permission to grieve or to get real, we have so many spaces where you can do that. One of the things that I think about is checking out our counseling bundle online course where you can sit with 10 or so counselors who speak into different topics, and one is specifically on grief. So make sure to check that out. But friend, I hope that you just got the fattest permission slip to be real with God, knowing and trusting that he can meet you in your truth. He can meet you in your anger, your despair, your doubt, your confusion, and your longings. He can meet you there. That you can't just move on because it will move with you. And as Shelbi said, it will leak, right? It'll come out sideways, that pain that you're not dealing with, that struggle. So friend, invite him into it and trust that the God who says, I'm the light of the world, will bring some light into that dark, isolated place. Keep colliding, and we'll catch you next week.